Begin with a sunset. For at the end of these days we are tired, and the light fading brings an ease, a quiet, sheltering like a blanket, a release. Now we know and have experienced a deeper quality of silence. In those days when we were unmoving from our houses, our conveyances devoid of sound and motion, we have breathed with the world's breath in those days, and we know now how to begin there. Just as the streets were done with sirens, the storefronts empty of shoppers, the restaurants depleted of diners, we know now how to stretch the silence between words. And at this sunset, no more words about what we cannot do, what we long to do, what has changed, what we would be doing if this were another summer. For what words could describe what is still puzzlement? What syllables could name the fissures we have witnessed, the breaking open, the shattering of hearts? What words could capture the depths of mourning, the fragmentation of confusion? What are the digits that could contain the enormity of numbers that we hear, of illnesses, of losses, of changes, of the dimensions of that tunneling away of what we once thought was unchangeable and now is changed and distanced, telescoping away wide to narrow. So, in these quiet times at the end of the day, let us reconnect with the place where we are and the times we are in and find something to love. We have carried much in this day. Let us put it down and find a spark of joy, a quiet comfort, something we can carry in our dreams. We can be in other places, swimming in other seas, journeying in other lands. And yet we can love this land too, this place too, where we are, even little fragments of these times. Whatever we have right now to sustain us, we need to love that too. We have learned to listen to trees, to take pleasure in small lights. We are in this together. We are held in a larger love, and we come together each week to remember this, embody this love. This is me in my not too impressive garden. In this time, we see a lot about the settings of one another's lives. We see one another in our homes, and this is not, as you can see, fancy beauty or rich beauty, but it is beauty hard won. I know that many of you have abundant and expansive gardens, and of course, there is the work that Indigo has done. This year, I have had a little bit of a starter garden, and that is good. I have 9 corn plants and 2 tomato plants and a strawberry plant that might not even make it through tomorrow's service. I have a bean plant, a Japanese squash plant that didn't make it, rosemary, mint, oregano, some multicultural mustard greens, and 6, yes, I count them every day, figs. And if they make it, they will be the first figs I have ever gotten from my tree. Some limes are emerging, and there's an intimation of lemons. This is not the garden that I dream of having. However, it is the garden that I have, and it gives me great pleasure every morning. I remember the day in April when I decided to reclaim what had become a very big patch of weeds, and how that took me a little bit longer than I thought it would. So the plants got a little bit of a late start, and it isn't really that much of a garden. And yet this small reclaimed space couldn't give me more pleasure if it was something fit for the cover of Sunset magazine. It gives me joy and a sense of connection, and that keeps my spirit singing during these days. No matter what my day may bring, I start almost every day here watering, sometimes at 5 or 5:30 a.m., tipping water onto leaves and under near roots is a ritual that reassures me about the possibility of tending life if we take care and are attentive. Joy and connection, joy and connection. We need to remember this in these times. When those who study such things say that we are suffering from stress and worry and concern, when we might be alarmed about many things, seeing our country's ideals mocked, or those who study such things say that they're noting another mass spread, this of mental disorder, of distress and anxiety and fear, and one other thing, survivor's guilt. People are feeling guilty about feeling good even for a little while. And some people deal with this by just refusing to ever feel good, and some people deal with this by refusing to look at anything hard. However, how we will get through this is by titrating back and forth, holding the truths we can, and seeking out with mindfulness and attention the good that is always here to see. Small joys must sustain us in these times, for beauty reminds us of our connections and gives us something to love. When I was young, I used to get up early to get a little time or stay up late reading by the nightlight that was at the base of my lamp. It was a cool, glowing half dome at the bottom of a heavy lamp. The quiet of the end of the day was a solace, and the little light glowed in the dark of my room. As I was rushing around preparing before the shelter in place, trying to prepare for that time, I went to Lowe's to get some flashlights and other essentials, and I was caught by the sight of a little solar-powered lantern. You don't have to have this, I said to myself. You really don't need this. And yet that light was a beacon. I would see it as I took out the trash at night or walk a dog, and it would always make me smile. It was a small joy. And when we were sheltering late at night, when I often felt disheartened or alone, I would go outside and sit on my single step in the front of my house and listen to the ash tree's conversation with the wind in its branches. And I still do this. I realized last Sunday that I could see the beacon that they have vowed to light each Sunday night at the top of Mount Diablo until this pandemic is over. That beacon on Mount Diablo was one I used to avoid seeing, as it was only lit on Pearl Harbor Day before this year. Now I often walk out to see it on Sunday nights, and I recently realized that I can see it from the same step through the branches of my ash tree. These small signs of love and connection are all around us in these days. At the car caravan this week, to remind people of our neighbors who need services, mental and physical health services, housing, while we continue to put our funds into policing. My heart leapt when we turned onto the street where County Commissioner Chair Candace Anderson lives, and people were out in the streets, and I was afraid. In this time of incomprehensible loss of life, we've had so many people die, and yet what we found were neighbors who had come out with children who had come out to greet us, to greet our caravan. The children ran back into their homes and came out with crayon signs that said, "Black Lives Matter." If we pay attention, life may give us great surprises and a reminder of the largeness of life to which we are connected. We need to stay connected to one another and to the natural world which has been here before us and which will continue when we are done, and to the promises of the day, for we might just be surprised by joy. So let's end this sermon with a sunrise, because another day will dawn and another, and in it we will find small sadnesses and small joys and big sadnesses and big joys, and we can hold them all. Sometimes the small things will hit us, like seeing places we have been that have been part of our lives closed now for business. Sometimes it is seeing the faces of people always wearing masks. Sometimes it is the quality of light, the kiss of a breeze, the beauty of the raw humanity in the face of a man sleeping on a lawn, because no other time is safe to sleep without a roof. I think of seeing beloved people on the campus, of the cards and notes and phone calls which sustain me and others say sustain them. And about this time when we hold what we need together this time when we find the peace of knowing we are not alone. And though we are mourning, we are also required to laugh. And though we have had loss, we can also take notes of all we have been given. And though we miss being together, we have been so stubborn and persistent in our connecting and our generosity towards one another and towards our wider community. Together we can hold what we cannot hold alone. So let's end with a sunrise. For each day, even in this time, is an invitation to know a deeper truth, to journey on a familiar road and see it anew, to remember to love the place we are in, even if we have to parse it fine to find what brings us joy, and to remember we are better together in this place and whatever spaces throughout our weeks in this strange and surreal summer where we find peace. No matter what happens, what changes, what shocks, what disappoints, may we make that truth a talisman, a truth that will guide us into easier times. May we be the ones to make it so.